Hello, everyone. This is Dr. August de Oliveira with the Mod Institute, and today I wanted to go over a really cool, very free software from True Abutment as part of their True Suite. It's called Pylon, and the way that you find it is just by just Google it. So just go to True Abutment True Suite, and go ahead and click. And you can go ahead and download it by hitting Start Now and download it to Windows. I've already downloaded it, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. And it's right up here under True Suite. So True Suite is pretty cool. It's a series of modules. And you can see down on the bottom, there's some ones that I didn't download. So there's a night guard, there's a model builder. Trust is a software that allows you to design custom abutments and screw routine crowns on tie bases. Dentru is a really awesome, absolutely free, no export AI denture design software. And Pylon is sort of True Abutment's version of a software that I'm using forever called Dentique Guide. And it is super easy to use. It's got a very Sirec-like or 3Shape-like graphic interface. So if you haven't installed it, you would click on Install at the bottom, and they would appear on your installed. So we're going to go ahead and click on Pylon. And it takes a little while to load up. So here we are, and this is basically Dentique Guide that True Abutment has developed an API that allows it to have unlimited exports. So we're going to click on New Patient, and it just needs your last name. So I'll just put in mine and hit OK, and click on New Case. So from the get-go, you see something that's very similar to people that are into intraoral scanners or CAD/CAM. We have a 3D model. It's a tie-bidant, and on the top we have this taskbar. And the taskbar tells you what the next step is and if it's enabled. So the first thing we're going to do in this case, we're going to do an implant on number 3. And you'll see that these 3 options are now sort of aware. You can see here it says supported tooth. That's for a tooth supported guide. There's an edentulous module, which I'll cover later, which is pretty cool. It's not quite a stackable guide. It is a soft tissue supported guide, not a bone supported guide. But it does give you the ability to pre-print a denture that can be converted. So I'm going to click on Crown. I'm going to click on Implant Planning, and I'm going to click on Surgical Guide. And if I right click and rotate, you can see here that the tooth is selected and we have this gold ring. So we know that we're able to not only get a crown form, but develop a guide. If you forget crown or you forget surgical guide, it'll still let you go through the steps, but you're not going to be able to get what you want. So you can see now on the top that this little mandible, it says data registration is enabled. So we're going to click on that next. And this is a very familiar screen if you're into guided surgery. So we have the ability to upload CT data, STL data of the upper or lower jaw, depending on what you're doing. Additional scan data is for a wax up that you've done. So I'll go ahead and click on CT data. I'm going to go ahead and click on this patient. I'm just going to select one of the DICOM files, and it might take a few seconds to load up here. So we'll wait. And here we are, very nice earrings. And we rotate the model by right-clicking and holding down. We can zoom in and out with the middle mouse button, and we can click the middle mouse button down to pan. So I'm going to go ahead and upload my scan data. And here we are. So we have our scan data here. Right-clicking, I can rotate around and see that this is in fact the right one. If you have a scanner that allows you to export to PLY, you'll get a color scan. If you have a system that only uploads or exports to STL, it'll not be colored. And you can see again, we have one more thing selected. So this is sort of where we can cut things. We can sort of look through and just make sure this is in fact the right patient scan. We can zoom in and out and scroll around. So yeah, this is the right one. Kind of a useless screen, but it allows us now to unlock our draw curve. So if you're familiar with guided surgery, you may know that we have to do something called the panoramic curve. Here we can only see the axial slices. Those are the native format of any DICOM, but there's no cross-sectional, tangential, or pan. So I just grab this little thing and move it to the center of the mandible. We don't want to be on teeth. We want to be able to see the buccal and lingual plates. I'm going to maximize this now. And the way we draw our curve is we want to stay centered within the arch. So I'm just going to draw here and draw here. And you don't have to get too crazy with the number of points, but we're just going to keep drawing here and double click at the end and minimize this. So now I've got a pan, I've got cross-sectional, and I've got tangential slices. So now we have to match up the data. Now, some software does this for you automatically. Not the end of the world to do it yourself, especially because everything is free. So we're going to pick 3 points and 3 points only. So think about which points you want to use. So my priority is that I want at least one in the anterior and one in the posterior. And I want to concentrate on teeth that don't have crowns. So I'm going to select the mesiobuccal of 3. And I'm going to select the mesioincisal of 8. And I'm going to select a premolar here. And you can see up on top, something got matched up. So I'm going to scroll this down and take a look. Now, if you look at the little bar on the screen, it tells you sort of the deviation. So red means there's a huge deviation, and green means there's no deviation. So what we're seeing is the teeth are green, so that's really cool, but the gums are red. So why are the gums red? Well, the gums are red because we have a PLY with gums, and then we have a CT scan, which is sort of pre-selected for bone, so there's no gums. So there's basically an infinite deviation. After we've done that, though, you can see that we've unlocked 2 more menus. The first one allows you to cut a tooth out. We're already missing number 3, so I'm not going to cover it. I'll cover it in another video where we're doing an immediate. This is super handy and saves you a ton of time. So I'm going to go ahead and click on crown placement. And this is very, very, again, CIREC or 3 shaped like. So we're just going to go ahead and left click and drag the tooth into the position. We're going to rotate it around and kind of put that tooth in place. Now, if I look here, I can kind of see that the mesial marginal ridge is higher than the distal marginal ridge. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this. And the way that we do it is we just hover over the points. So this will scale. And so we can kind of snug that tooth in there. And we can rotate here. And whenever you rotate to the mesial, you got to kind of move the tooth back to the distal. And I can now put that tooth back in there. So I'm looking pretty well aligned. What I like to do is look at the central fissures. This to me looks a little rotated occlusally, so I'm just going to go ahead and fix that. Now you can see that my implant is now released, so I'm going to click on that next. So it automatically kind of grays out our cone beam. That could be helpful, it could be not, I don't really know. But I'm going to go ahead and select the tooth I'm working on, in this case tooth number 3. In this case we're just going to work on true abutment. So I'm going to select true abutment, and I'm going to use the Urus Pylon system, that's their guided kit, and I'm going to click on this sleeve. Now it's going to go ahead and give me a bunch of different options for implants. I'm using a Urus Omni tapered, and I already know this is a 5 by 8.5. And so I'm going to go ahead and close this. You can see that the software already put my implant in the center of the tooth. And we can see that we have a little problem here. So I'm going to go ahead and move this implant occlusally and take a look from sort of different perspectives. So we can see here, we can rotate this and look around the implant to see if where we are is looking good. And I think that we are. If I wanted to move it, I certainly could. What I like to do is turn off the cone beam. I'm going to make my model nice and opaque. And take a look at the actual model. So I'm evaluating this almost as if it was just a lab case I got back from the lab. So I can see here that I am in fact centered in the crown. What I like to do is turn the crown off and take a look at the actual implant in the edentulous space. And you can see here that I'm actually a little shoved to the distal. I'm going to look at this from the occlusal. And it looks like I'm actually fairly lined up well, but I'm just too far to the distal. So we're going to go ahead and turn back on. Doesn't look like it here in the screen, but let's just go ahead and move that a little bit. I'm kind of hugging the sinus now, so what I might want to do is move that back and actually angle my implant a little bit to the mesial. So let's see if that helps me. And so now, I'll go ahead and move this down and kind of go back. And we can take a look at our model. And I apologize for my slow computer. One drawback of having this be web-based is it is dependent on your internet. Not bad. I guess if I could be really, really picky, I could scooch this over just a little bit more. A little too much. Let's go back. So now we're perfectly lined up. I'll go ahead and turn my crown back on. And yes, in fact, we're right in the center of it. One thing that's really cool about the Eurus guided sleeve is it has a little notch and a little clip. And so when you print it, and if it prints out well, you don't need to use any cement. It's going to snap in. And it's already pre-indexed, so you know you're putting your implant in the right spot. So let's go ahead and design our guide now. Now, there's a couple of things that you need to be aware of, and those are the parameters on the bottom. So if we look here, guide thickness is set at 2.5 millimeters. I think that's a really good setting. However, what I don't like is the offset from teeth to guide. That's a little bit too low for my taste. So I'm going to change that to 1.15, so 150 microns. The original setting was 100 microns. Very important, offset from sleeve to guide. Now this is the amount of spacer between our printed guide and the actual guide sleeve. I tried printing one at 50 microns. It did not print. On my 55, which is a 55 micron printer. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to 0.1. And I'll go ahead and put these in the comments. Sleeve offset from sleeve to guide set at 0.15. Offset from teeth to guide 0.150. Offset from sleeve to guide 0.1. So the first step when we design our guide in any guide software is to pick a path of insertion. And so I want to be looking down on the edentulous space. And so I'm going to go ahead and click this little eyeball. And the eyeball will sort of set our insertion direction. And if we look at the sides of the model, we can see where the undercuts are. Next, what I want to do, and it's a little confusing, is this thing that says drawing geodesic. That's a fancy word, I guess, for drawing our little outline of our guide. So we're going to go ahead and click the plus sign, and we are just going to click. So this goes all the way back to the third molar. I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to stop short of the third molar. And I'm just going to draw a little guide, maybe up to the lateral incisor. And a lot of people spend a lot of time putting in windows and things like that on their guides. I don't worry about that just because if I have a little guide, it's going to use less resin. And then also, if it's not seated, I can see that in the anterior. So now it likes it. And boom, we've got a guide. So if we go to our next screen, we can generate a report. We're just giving consent here. And so you can see a bunch of stuff. If you click on Show Planning Report, it generates a PDF and it gives you all the information, which implant you're using, a bunch of cross-sectional screens to show you where we are. I think this is really, really cool, especially if you're not doing the guide same day. Maybe the patient's coming back in a week or two. You can go ahead and print this out and put it in a little box with the implant and know exactly what's going on. We can show the drilling protocol, which will basically tell you which implant drill you're going to use and which sleeve you're going to use. We can go ahead and just save the case. We can generate bases on our model. Exporting mesh files will export the surgical guide. And then trust is something I'll cover later on. We can actually pre-make our temporary with either a non-engaging tie base, or if you want to use engaging, you can send out for a titanium abutment. Just know that when you place that implant, make sure you kind of turn it so the abutment is where it should be. So I'm going to click on Export Mesh Files, and let's go ahead and take this to my downloads and hit OK. And so I'm going to go ahead and pull up Rayware. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but it did not ask me for any money to export that. So as Rayware pulls up, I'm going to go ahead and print this on the Pro 55. I still have a lot of Surgical Guide 2. I actually provides like Surgical Guide 3. So I'm just running through this. I'm going to hit apply. I'm going to go ahead and add my case. And it's the upper surgical guide mesh. And here we are. So we have this. We'll just go ahead and add supports to it. A lot of people get pretty picky about where their supports go and try to move them around and whatnot. What I find is the computer is pretty good at knowing what is supported and what is not. And if I go in and mess with it, sometimes I get failures. So I just go ahead and print it out. If I happen to have a support in the guide tube, I drill it out. As long as you have 90% of the guide tube, it's going to be fitting okay. And you would just go click on this icon and hit print. And that's it. So thank you for listening.